taking this deep breath and just letting everything that came before this moment just release with that exhale. And knowing that there is only one. There's one love, one life, one peace, one mind. It is all that there is. It is the source of all supply, the power back behind all things. It is that ineffable singularity that has 1,000 names. It is that infinite presence that expresses out in the multiplicity. It shows up as that red-tailed hawk that is always appearing, threading life into the hem of the horizon. It is in the way the violets blink like purple stars in the undergrowth, in the way spring happens nonetheless, continually resurrecting despite the external conditions, always arising, always shining. There's not a spot that this divine presence is not. We are continually immersed in and embraced by that love. I am of it. I'm an expression of God in this physical body, in this finite form, exuding out all those infinite God qualities, all that peace, all that power, all that beauty. It resides within me, and it resides within each one here as well. They do not need to seek it out anywhere else. There is no intermediary. Each one here is a representation of that life, of that peace, of that joy. And so it is from this place in consciousness that I affirm my word for this spiritual community today. I know that the music here today tunes each one's awareness and perception into the key of G. I know that each one's baffled king or queen may sing hallelujah today. And I know that in those silent moments, that each one goes out beyond their longing for that ineffable singularity and embodies it, embraces it, represents it. And I know that the words of Reverend David are a reminder that resurrection is not a shifted stone, it's not an empty tomb, but it's an inner realization, a fertile, albeit messy at times, place of transformation. And so I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for this word. I am grateful for this community. I'm grateful for this opportunity to convene, to tabernacle, to be with the divine in this way. And so I give thanks for the law that always says yes, that always affirms what I give it. I give over this word to that law, knowing that it is done, knowing that it is so, knowing that it is manifest. And I simply say, and so it is.
Richard Rohr today, and this is actually a take from his 2019 Easter thing that he wrote up, Contemplation, said, "Today is the feast of hope, direction, purpose, meaning, and community. We're all in this together. The cynicism and negativity that our country and many other countries," I'll remind you, he wrote this in 2019. The cynicism and negativity that our country and many other countries have descended into show a clear example of what happens when people do not have hope. If it's hopeless, we individually lose hope too. Easter is an announcement of a common hope. So that's what we're rising into, is that higher truth, that higher knowing. It's interesting because he talks about that in Eastern Orthodoxy, the pictures of Jesus at the resurrection show him in company of a whole lot of other people also rising. You know, here in the West, Western religiosity, Western Christianity, he's the guy by himself who did this. And so stick him on a pedestal and worship him. And we've been raised in that for a couple thousand years. But that's not what was the original. I'm going to talk about Jesus today, by the way. Can you tell? We're going to talk about other stuff too, but it is resurrection, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. But it's the idea that, and first of all, this isn't about the person of Jesus. This is about the rising of what's known as Christ consciousness. And Christ consciousness is the knowing and embodying of the divine in human form. Breathe. We are the divine in human form. You and I are all Christ. We just don't necessarily always remember that, right? Okay, let's let's try that again. And in case this is a new idea for you, just go along with it. Just try it on for size, okay? See if it works at all. The Christ consciousness is the embodiment of the divine in human form, and that's what you and I are. You are, I am the Christ in form. Whether we know it or not, whether we remember it or not, we still are. Yes? Yes. Good. Whew. Had me worried there for a minute. So we are here to remember this, and I love this season because it's the season of birth, of something new. It's spring, as well as the resurrection. It's the whole theme of a rising out of the dead. And resurrection isn't it happened shazam, one middle of the night, one time. It's a process. Resurrection is a process. Yes? You've noticed that spring didn't just, on March 21st, bam, there it was, right? No. When did spring start? Last fall, when it let go of everything that it had been in the summer. And the leaves fell, and then everything went dormant, and then it resurrected again in the spring. Resurrection is a process that we go through. Now here's the wonderful, excellent, thrilling news. In order to have a resurrection, you have to have a crucifixion. Breathe. And then a period of dormancy. The crucifixion is the loss of everything with which we've identified. The period of dormancy is the time where we kind of let all that bubble and go through the process of grief and letting it come through. And for some of us, that dormancy process is a years-long process. Yes? Okay? Until finally something makes its way and says, ooh, there's new growth happening here. Now here's the other thing about resurrection. It is not something we do. In the Bible, it doesn't say Jesus resurrected himself. He didn't sit there and go, okay, I've been here long enough, dudes. I'm gonna raise myself up right here. No, it said he was resurrected. The trees don't sit there and go, okay, now I'm going to spring. Spring comes through nature, comes through life. The resurrection comes through us because it's a natural process. It's a natural lifting up into who and what we always were, but have forgotten that we are. Yes? The song talked about surrender. I think it was the song talked about surrender. That we have to surrender into that. We can either be like water in the river and flowing, or we can be like ice in the river and jamming it up. Are we willing to melt? Are we willing to let go? Are we willing to surrender to this energy that is constantly and always moving through us for more life, more love, more joy? Because that's what's here. That's why Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. Yes? Life, capital L, life, abundantly. Not someday in some afterworld up there in the sky. Which direction is that up there in the sky these days? That worked when the earth was flat, right? And there was a little, Hades down below where all the dead people went, and there was the gods lived up in the skies. Okay? But that doesn't work in the world that we know now really exists. And Jesus didn't teach that anyway. He said the kingdom of heaven is right here, right now, within. It's at hand. We're it. We're in it. So we're here to let ourselves be resurrected. And we participate in that by surrendering to the energy that wants to move through us. And most of us have blocked that energy. And so our dance is to say, how can I let go? How can I let go? How can I let go a little more and let a little more happen? Until I get to some place that before this started, I can't even imagine. How can I let more than I could ever believe possible in my life happen? And as we open up to that, that energy wants to move through it. It wants to move through us. Get that? It wants to. This is the infinite wanting to be itself alive, awake, and aware, and enthusiastic as you and me. And we're the ones who say, wait, I got this stuff from my childhood. I got these divorces, and I got fired from that job, and I got blah, 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 right? I got all this stuff, and the infinite is saying, I don't give a shit. Pardon my language. No, don't pardon my language. It's just, it doesn't care. Right? It doesn't have an agenda. I love, the other major resurrection story in the Bible is the one that's represented in the other feast that we're celebrating at this past week, which is known as Passover in the Jewish tradition. And that's the launching of the Jews off into the promised land. Right? And God calls Moses, and Moses said, you don't want me for the guy that you're spokesperson here. I stutter, and by the way, I killed this guy back here, and I'm kind of a wanted man, and you want my brother Aaron. And so many times we sit there and go, no, it's not me. You want somebody else. Yes? And God says to Moses, what? The heck with all that. I want you. I picked you. And the infinite comes to you every day, and me every day, and says, I'm picking you. You want to go? And we sit there and go, well, I got this thing I got to do first. Our lawnmower doesn't work. My finances aren't what they were. Right? We got this. I got a health issue I got to deal. We get all this stuff, and the universe is saying, do you want to go? Do you want to go? That's a question for you. Do you want to go? Yes. We can be resurrected at any moment. The universe isn't waiting. It's not its agenda. It's our agenda. It's our choice. It's our leaning into and letting go of and saying, yep, I'm willing to be lifted now. I'm tired of playing small. I'm tired of keeping my light under a bushel basket. I'm tired of sitting there going, woe is me, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy, I'm not worthy. I'm willing to say, yeah, hey, I'm God in form, I'm going to play big. Right? Yes. Breathe that in. Say that, I am God in form and I'm willing to play big. I am willing to rise and shine. We live this life. Have you noticed that right now the world seems to be in kind of a crucifixion stage? You've noticed that, yeah? Yeah? And it has been for a little while, not just the last 100 days. Has been for a while. And that's exciting because it means what? There's a resurrection coming. Change, yes. And we can get caught up in the crucifixion process. Look at those SOBs. Look at those horrible people, what they're doing. By the way, those horrible people are pointing back to us going, look at those horrible, stupid people and what they're believing. And we can all sit there with our fingers pointed at each other, and we forget that as I've got my finger pointed out at those people, there's 3 pointed back at me because there's only one life. Hello? There's only one life. Jesus left us with the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father who art in heaven. Buddha left us with his prayer of compassion. May all beings be happy, may all beings be well, etc. Ernest Holmes left us with a prayer that says, there's only one life, that life is God's life, that life is perfect, and that life is my life now. Let's talk about that for a minute. There's only one life. Guess what? All this stuff that we see happening is happening within what? The one life. There's no them and us. There's just a oneness. Now, our ego likes to separate and convince us that, look at them, look at that person, look at all that stuff out there, and it wants to run the show. Anybody besides me have an ego that wants to run the show? Every now and then? Like every now and then from 6 in the morning till about midnight when I go to sleep. But there's only one life. And then the next stage of that is to remember whose life it is. Years ago, I was on a retreat down in Baja, and there were two musicians, and they did not get along with each other. They were the musicians for the retreat. And one was, frankly, rather narcissistic, and the other one was very kind of self-defeating, I guess, low self-esteem. And at one point in time, the one is sitting there going to the other, there's only one life. That life is my life. That life is perfect, and that life is my life now. And I remember my wife and I were kind of doing some counseling with them, and I kind of just looked at that and said, yep, that about summarizes that position. There's only one life. It's not God's life. It's my life, my ego's life. I'm in charge. But the real truth is there's only one life, and it is the infinite life, the infinite love, the infinite wholeness, the infinite life, the infinite joy, the infinite good, beauty, peace, and power. That is the only life there is. Our work is to disengage from the belief that there's something separate from that. And to start to live as that life and form. Because the next line is, and that life is perfect. That life is perfect. Now, the ego always has an idea of what perfect is, right? We played with this in the sanctuary for the last couple of Sundays, yes? And a lot of you, I remember at the end of the service last Sunday, I mentioned that we're going to straighten out the chairs for Easter, and one person who shall be remaining lameless, but I'm looking at her, immediately ran and straightened the pictures. She said, I've got to straighten these pictures because our ego wants its idea of order. My previous church down in Redding had these 3 beautiful maple trees outside of the sanctuary. And every fall, the leaves would turn a beautiful, bright yellow color and then drop and create this lovely circle around it. And then the garden crew would come up and quickly clean up all those fallen leaves, right? Which, I remember the first time it dawned on me, oh, this is the mulch and the nutrition for the growth for the winter. It's a perfect natural process. It's a perfect order and harmony. But our ego order says, oh, no, that looks messy. We've got to have this properly manicured lawn that's always in shape. And being Reading, there wasn't exactly a whole lot of cold weather. So we have this ego that wants an order, but there's an order beyond that. There's a perfection beyond our idea of what is perfect. And part of our task is to let go and say, can I see the perfection in this? Can I see the divinity in this? Can I see the perfect order, harmony, and divinity in this person, in this situation? Whether it's someone out there or whether it's something within me. Can you see the divinity within you? Can you look in the mirror and say to yourself, you are the divine in form? Can you look at the person next to you and say, I am the divine in form? I am the divine in form. Because that's the truth of who you are. It's not it's not when you get somewhere, when you do something, when you whatever. As Tim said, there's no intermediary necessary between you and God because you're just God in form already. Yes? So it's realizing that. It's not that there needs to be anything in that, but there's the realizing of that. A practice that gets us through the crucifixion stage. Oh, by the way, the last line then, of course, is this life is perfect, and then this life is whose life now? My life now. So this infinite presence is taking form as you and me and all of us. It's all the divine in form. All of it. And so a wonderful way to get through the crucifixion process was modeled by Jesus when he said, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do. Yes? And how many times have we needed to apply that to ourselves? Infinite presence, forgive me, I wasn't paying attention. I didn't know what I was doing. Can we apply that to each other? Can we apply that to the other forms of God on the planet? It doesn't mean, by the way, that we don't keep going for greater love, greater peace, greater joy, greater integrity. It doesn't mean that we don't stop working for all that, that we just go, oh, la, 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 everything's fine. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is coming from a base, from a foundation of all there is the divine. And I'm here to shine that truth as brightly as I can into the world, knowing simultaneously that I'm not responsible for the world's reaction to it. See, I can be as loving to somebody as I want to be, and if that person isn't in the mood, they're not going to be loving back because they're not in the mood. Does that mean I shut down and stop loving them? No, I keep just being loving. I might want to go find someplace else to be loving too, someplace that's more receptive, but I still continue to shine that love because that is what I'm here to do, is to shine that love, to shine that light, to shine that joy. That's what you and I are here to do. And so we say, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And we surrender. You know, Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane says, not my will, but thine be done. I surrender to a higher, my ego would prefer not to go through this crap. There's a whole lot of pain coming right in front of me here. I don't want to go through it. But I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to put on my big boy robe, loincloth, whatever, and go through this. And then on the cross, the last thing he says, according to Luke, is, Father, into thy hands I commit my spirit. I surrender completely. Have you ever been at a time where you just finally say, I give up, I got to surrender completely because I have no blankety blank idea what to do? That's surrender. Remember, resurrection happens on an ongoing basis. It's not a one thing to one guy one time. It's not a one thing to you one time. It's an ongoing thing. We have little resurrections. We have big resurrections. We have in-between resurrections. We always are opening to that new energy. The resurrection is that new energy. Ernest Holmes invites us to, in his reading today from 365 Science of Mind, invites us to feel it. He says, because I am one with God, I am one with all people. Say that. Because I am one with God, I am one with all people. Because I am one with life, I am one with everything that lives. I feel my union with people and with nature, and I feel that I belong to life. So it's not just this nice little intellectual idea. It doesn't happen until we embody it. Reverend Lloyd Strom says that resurrection is the embodiment of enlightenment. Resurrection is of the body, it's of our physical expression in the world. That we shift, we have this shift. It's not enough to just know it or know about it. It's the embodiment of it. It's the livingness of it. And so we're called to feel it. We're called to take it to the deepest level of our being and allow that to radiate out from us. And this theme of resurrection isn't unique to Christianity. As many of you know, I love the Hindu tradition. In the Hindu tradition, there's this triune nature of the divinity, which is Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the maintainer, and Shiva, the destroyer. Because they recognize that there has to be destruction in order for a new creation to form. And so we cycle through this. And we in our Western culture, we love the creation, and we love the maintenance, the preserving, right? The destruction, not so much, unless I'm destroying somebody else's something. But it's all part of the life cycle. The tree has to appear dead. The plant has to die back in order to have a spring. And that's what we're playing with. That's what we're involved with. So we have this opportunity to rise in consciousness and shine. And I'm going to invite you this week to do that, to play with that, to listen to your inner spirit, to listen to where it wants to rise into something new, not where your ego thinks it's safe. Yes? This takes going below that, deeper than that, and saying, where is it that you, my infinite self, want to rise into something new? Where am I being called? Where am I perhaps going through a crucifixion experience in my life already that I find if I will let go of being attached to trying to prevent the crucifixion and just allow it to happen and surrender to the process and forgive it and let myself have a period of dormancy, I will be lifted up not through my own will, but through the process of aliveness and capital L life itself. And so I invite you to tap into that and say, what is it? Where is it that something wants to rise new, and surrender and say yes? Will you do that this week? Yes. Right. Tentatively. Yes. Oh, good. Oh, good. Enthusiastically. Take a breath. I want to close with a poem, one of my favorite poems. This was written in 1978 by African-American author Maya Angelou. I've read this poem a number of times before, and I love it, and it's perfect for this day. It's called Still I Rise. Many of you have heard this. You may write me down, and by the way, this is of course an expression of the pain and the suffering of the African American people in this country, or the African origin people in the world, or any other brown-skinned person, particularly in the Western world, yes? Which is really stupid because we're all of African descent, if you go far enough back. It's stupid that we even have to have this. But she says, you may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Because I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Do you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, because I laugh like I've got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. My invitation to you is to be that energy of rising. It's not just African American people that have been entrapped. We think we're free. One of my teachers a long time ago said, I love to work with prisoners because they recognize that they're in prison. The people outside don't recognize that they're in prison. So we have an affirmation. Say this with me. I say yes to the spirit within me that wants to rise and shine. And one more time with feeling. I say yes to the spirit within me that wants to rise and shine. So I do, and so it is. Thank you.